Thanks for taking the time to listen to our latest content here on the Blood Red channel. Guy here with just a quick message. Do you want the very latest Liverpool FC news directly into your inbox? Well, then sign up to our daily LFC newsletter, which will bring you the breaking news and big events from around Anfield. To subscribe, just go to bit.ly/LFC newsletter. That's bit.ly/LFC newsletter, or click the link in the description of this podcast and pop in your email address. It really is that simple. That link once more, bit.ly/LFC newsletter. Well, thanks for your time, and on with the podcast.
This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
Hello and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. I'm Matt Addison on hosting duties once again. We have plenty to get into after the match of the season. Jurgen Klopp made plenty of changes as Liverpool beat Newcastle United 3-1 at St James's Park, and we'll get into that match plus plenty more over the course of the next half an hour or so. To get into all of the latest Reds talking points, I have alongside me for the latest podcast our Liverpool correspondent, both home and away, Paul Gorst, and also Joe Rimmer. Gents, how are we getting on?
Not bad. Quite glad the season's over, if I'm honest. It's been a long old slog, hasn't it? Nearly a full calendar year, but come to an end in subdued circumstances. But it's been a glorious week for Liverpool Football Club, hasn't it? And to be getting into the final Blood Red of the season.
Yeah, that's it. I'm quite glad the season's over. It's a strange one, isn't it? Because it has been a great season for Liverpool, but it's been a strange season for everyone. And I think we all just need a break to reset. And yeah, I don't think we'll be waiting too long. I think Liverpool got 2 weeks off, so they'll be coming back in 2 weeks, and it all begins again. So it won't be too long to wait. And then there's Champions League and whatnot. So yeah, it never really stops, does it, football?
Absolutely not. And of course, today we've had the news that Dejan Lovren has departed. So the season has only just come to an end, and that announcement has been made. Jurgen Klopp had some kind words say about Dejan Lovren as soon as he was gone. And he's clearly an important member, or clearly was an important member of the Liverpool squad.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think pretty much throughout this whole squad, there are characters out there, and there are people who, whilst they're not playing every week, they're still important members of this team. And I can think of no one who epitomises that perhaps more than Adam Lallana, who left on Friday, said his goodbyes, and Dejan Lovren as well, who's a big character in that dressing room. Obviously, very good mates with Mohamed Salah as well, and I think their kind of friendship has been one of the best subplots of the last few years at Liverpool. But I think quite a lot of fans will sadly be quite pleased that he's finally left after 6 years at the club. But this is a player who has played in Europa League finals, Champions League finals, World finals, top professional player in the Premier League for 7 years, I believe, since he moved to Southampton from Lyon, I think. And Liverpool have got a decent fee for him. My only thing would be to wish him well and hope that he does well. He's going to be playing in the Champions League for the next few years, so it's a good move for him. I just hope that 10.9 million fee that Liverpool have pocketed goes back into the transfer kitty and someone of a similar ilk is replaced, rather than putting faith in the youngster, because Liverpool can't go into next season, which is only a few weeks away, with only 3 senior centre-backs and Joel Matip, who spends a lot of time on the treatment table.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Lovren this season has played against Manchester City and Leicester City, 2 crucial matches at the start of the season, Joe. And I suppose it's easy to forget, really. As Gorsty says, he gets a lot of stick at times, but he has actually been a fairly reliable player, and a player who's played in some big games for Liverpool of late.
That's it. He's a funny old player, Dejan Lovren. He's caused a fair few arguments in his time, and I've been involved in a fair few arguments over it. He's a sort of player that I understand he obviously has flaws, and I understand why people perhaps aren't massive fans of him, but I can't ever understand why people are so ultra critical and almost, I've seen friends are made up to that he's left the club, and I find that strange, especially at a time when Liverpool are winning everything they could possibly win, making dreams come true. Should we not be happy with the contributions of all the players and them well in what they do? And I'd like to do that with Dejan Lovren. I think you're absolutely right. Personally, that his good performances often get forgotten because he'll make one or two, and then suddenly it's like, well, like you just said, he played against Leicester, he played against Man City, 2 key games, and then of course he played in the Watford game and Liverpool lost. But what these things leaving themselves out. Players do make mistakes. Van Dijk made a huge high-profile error at Arsenal and Liverpool lost the game. Ultimately, it didn't mean anything, but neither did Watford. So, I do find that people make a bigger deal of these mistakes than they do for other players, because Lovren hasn't really been popular ever since he arrived at Anfield, and it's a bit of a shame. I do think he deserves more credit than he gets. And if you look back at the Watford game, Liverpool took the place all over the show that day, so it was just him. So I think, he should be wished well. I think he's been a key figure. And the other thing that like Gorst, he mentioned that people talk about performances on the pitch all the time. They don't always consider what goes on off the pitch. And he's clearly a leader. He's clearly a strong personality. And he's clearly been someone who's been quite key. You ever hear Jurgen Klopp talk about him? He talks in good terms about him, and I think there's temptation to think that because Klopp is a nice fella and he gives out the hugs and stuff, that he won't have anything bad said about his players. But he's as ruthless as any of the big managers when he wants to be and when he needs to be. And it's no coincidence that many of the centre halves, many of the players at Liverpool have been moved on, and Lovren stuck around through a key period. So there's no doubt he was important. So we wish him well, and I think Zenit's a good move for him. I think he is good, considering he had 1 year with not of another. I think, like Gorst says, I'd like to see Liverpool get experience, because it's not always easy in the transfer market, and replacing Lovren, a 31-year-old player with plenty of profile experience, will be very difficult.
It certainly will. And Gorsty Connor Dunn checked out the reports this morning surrounding Schalke defender Ozan Kabak. We understand he's not a player that Liverpool are interested in, but I suppose if fans were desperate for transfers to take place before Dejan Lovren left, that desperation will only have increased now.
Yeah, I've just done a Q&A on our website, and maybe 99% of the questions on the transfers, as they inevitably do, but particularly at the moment with the transfer window officially open from today, 10-week period now for clubs to get the house in order. It's a fair question. I think there is an unhealthy obsession with transfers, but in this case, it's very legitimate to ask, is there going to be someone coming in to replace Dejan Lovren? I hope so. I really do, because as I mentioned, I don't think Liverpool can kind of go into the season with 3 senior centre-backs, and one of them is quite injury-prone, and Joel Matip, and I don't really like Fabinho getting thrown in there. It reminds me a lot of Fernandinho performing there for Manchester City. I think it takes so much away from a world-class defensive midfielder and puts someone in a position that they're not used to playing. I think it shoots yourself in the foot twice. So hopefully someone is recruited, someone with a bit of experience. But it's going to be difficult to replace someone of Lovren's experience. Close to 200 Premier League appearances for Liverpool. It will be over 200 with the games he played for Southampton. As we mentioned, all them finals that he's been involved in. And who's going to be at a similar level and be happy not playing every week, or know that they've got a fight on the hands to get near the starting 11? So it's going to be a difficult one to replace him, and I think Liverpool have generally got that problem across the board this season, no matter who you get rid of. So it's a difficult balancing act at a time when funds are understandably stretched.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Liverpool do. But let's turn our attentions then to some actual football on the pitch. Liverpool, of course, beat Newcastle over the weekend, Joe. And I suppose overall, the game was a bit like it has been for Liverpool this season. Not exactly scintillating, but get the job done and got those 3 points.
Yeah, exactly. I think it sort of epitomised the season, didn't it? And, Liverpool went behind early, fought back, as they quite often do, to win the game, and then never really looked in any danger. So, yeah, it's a difficult one to judge. These last few games and the last portion of the season, since we went behind closed doors, has been very strange and very difficult to judge, really. But I think there was some promise there, and Gorst mentioned in both of them in his verdict. Minamino was very good. Showed some brilliant touches. Still on the periphery games. I think that was probably his best game so far for Liverpool since coming in and starting to look. I think you used a good turn of phrase, Ghosty. You said, like, on one hand, sometimes he doesn't look like he's quite cutting it, but on the other, he then looks like a very good deputy for Firmino, and that's what Liverpool need, don't they? It's the one position that they've really struggled to find an alternative to, and if they can mould him as that alternative to Firmino, then it'll be just asset for Liverpool next season. He was unlucky not to score. I think he just needs a goal. It's to be involved in something that just gives him a bit more confidence, like we've seen with Naby Keita. And I think the odd goal and the odd good performance started to show him that he belongs at Liverpool, and we're seeing the benefits of that. So, Keita was the other one I wanted to mention. Season's kind of come to an end for him at the wrong time, but starting to look like he belongs more and more. And it's a cliche, isn't it? People get a bit upset, but he can be like a new signing for Liverpool. If he goes into the season playing, starting for the club and playing more often than not, then he will give Liverpool something they haven't had. And the same goes for Minamino. So the two of them, great promise. I'm sure we'll come to Divock Origi, but quite pleased for both of them.
Yeah, Takumi Minamino was a player that lots of Liverpool fans were excited about during Project Restart and as the football was returning. What have you made overall of the performances of what we've seen of him so far?
It's difficult to judge because he's coming into a team that, when you think of he joined in January, Liverpool were absolutely flying, weren't they? They were finely tuned, had their system down to a T, and then he's coming from Austria and he's got to kind of get up to speed with how things work at Anfield, and he's always had that ability to press from the front, and he's a bit of a nuisance, isn't he, to defenders. They know if he's around, they can't really dwell in possession for too long because he does try to win it quite high. And he's got plenty of quality on the ball. He's very, he's not the quickest and he's not the strongest, but he's got plenty of technical ability. And we've seen that when he played for Salzburg, didn't we? When the goal he scored at Anfield in October. So he's definitely got plenty about him. And I think there was always an acceptance that he didn't need to come in and hit the ground running and be a superstar straight away. Liverpool didn't be. It was just a case of getting up to speed and learning how this team works. And then next season is when you'll start to see the best of him. So I'm hoping that will be the case. Disappointed for him that one never went in yesterday. But it was a great save from Martin Bravka. I think that if that would have went in, he needed something to go for him, just to give him something to put the feather in his cap to go into next season. But I'm sure he will prove to be a valuable squad member as of next season.
Yeah, I'm sure when he gets his first Liverpool goal, that will be a big boost for him. But somebody who did get themselves onto the score sheet, Joe, you mentioned him before, Divock Origi. I suppose it was another classic Divock Origi game in that he finds the back of the net. He didn't do a great deal.
He's so tough to work out, isn't he? It was a good goal, an important goal. But personally, push comes to shove, I think it's time for Origi probably to move on. And this is where, what Gorst was saying earlier about Liverpool having a tough task. This is where I think that is massively true, because everyone's moved on. Lallana's moved on. And then you look at Origi and Shaqiri, and for me, they've just gone a little bit stale. We talk about Minamino and having something to prove and playing in those games with a desire and a hunger. And I'm not saying that Origi doesn't have that, but I certainly think that if you've been a squad player at a club for 2 or 3 seasons and you're not breaking into the first team, perhaps you start to accept your position. And that's where I think with Origi, he still gets certain important goals, but I think that was his first one since December. So, for me now, I just think that the time might be right for Liverpool to cash on him and try and find somebody, even if it's a Brewster, who can come in and have something to fight for. Because I think Origi will know, his heart of hearts, he's never going to be a first team regular at Liverpool. So, yeah, I think that summed him up yesterday. He can still get a goal, but perhaps not doing enough in games to really justify being an option for Liverpool. And I think if you look at other clubs and look at, I don't think there's any point in getting jealous over Man City squad, but I do think they have they have closer depth, don't they? You know, there's not a big disparity between, I don't know, a Mahrez or a Sterling. You know, Mahrez has more of an impact on games in general, and that's what Liverpool need. So, yeah, I think the time could be right for Origi to move on. And again, he'd be one of the ones that you'd wish well, that you'd always look out for and hope he does well elsewhere. But yeah, I just think he's slightly stale at the club now.
Yeah, he's still only 25, isn't he? So he's still got his best years ahead of him. It is easy to forget that. But I suppose, Gorsty, one player who is still a huge part of this Liverpool team is Gini Wijnaldum. I saw ESPN put out a tweet earlier today to say that he's not managed a league assist for 2 consecutive seasons now. But I suppose that kind of just misses the point.
Yeah, completely. And I'd actually challenge that, because he definitely won the ball back for Keita on Wednesday night for Keita to run on goal. So that assist. He set up Firmino against Atletico Madrid, didn't he? Okay, that was in the Champions League. But if it comes off the post and then Firmino finishes it, does that not count as an assist for Wijnaldum? That's just not patently why he's in the team. He's in the team to basically shut down gaps in the midfield for other areas. And we've seen it yesterday. I made the point of it on our blog that he was basically helping Nico Williams out against, was it now, Newcastle on the left side of their midfield.
Alan Saint-Maximin.
That's the one, yeah. Saint-Maximin. He was obviously their danger man, wasn't he? So unpredictable and so skillful. Nico Williams making his 3rd Premier League start, 2nd Premier League start. That's a difficult challenge for him. Wijnaldum was over there helping him throughout the entire game until Saint-Maximin went off. And he did the same against Burnley with Dwight McNeil. He's not in the team to be pulling strings like a David Silva or a Kevin De Bruyne. He's in there for a specific role. And this is what has brought Liverpool to the dance, with these, you know, this midfield being as regimented and as specified as it is. It's not all about, you know, numbers and goals and assists. You've got the front three to do that. So it's a bit of an unfair one, really, to level at Wijnaldum when he does, in fact, weighs in with a fair share of goals, to be fair, doesn't he? Scored against Chelsea the other night. So, look, I mean, I wouldn't be losing any sleep over that if I was Gini Wijnaldum or Liverpool supporters.
No,
look,
certainly not.
Can I just say this is just the stupidity of like the social media age that we live in, and I love many things about social media. I think, you know, it connects people to their club from all over the world, but these like little snapshots of things that remove all context. So to tweet that about Wijnaldum, it's just totally bizarre, isn't it? So what? You know, like Gorst says, you can challenge that, but even if that's the case, Liverpool are champions with 99 points. Yeah. You know, it's like saying Firmino hasn't hit double figures in the Premier League this season. It doesn't matter, does it? And even if, you know, Liverpool win the league again next season and Wijnaldum doesn't get a goal or an assist, and he's part of the team, then nobody should care. It's these little things that really get on my nerves. You know, like you've got to apply context, haven't you? You've got to look at the season as a whole, and you know it's why I get so frustrated about Lovren, because you see people tweet little clips from the game of moments and take it totally out of context. So you know that Wijnaldum tweet it's just bizarre. I think perhaps ESPN know what they're doing. They've tweeted that out. They're looking for a bit of a reaction, and you know it's got a hell of a lot of traction, hasn't it? But it's just so strange, isn't it? You know, I don't think you should have any criticism of Wijnaldum. And if you don't watch him every week, then you perhaps don't appreciate what a player he is. But he's been absolutely vital for Liverpool, and I know we've talked about it at length. But they need to get a contract in front of him and get it signed, because he will not be easy to replace if they lose him. He's going to be one of the toughest players in that team to replace, because he does such a niche role. And you know, look, Bruno Fernandes or whoever else can have 35 assists and however many goals, but if Liverpool keep winning titles, they can keep them, can't they? You know, all these bizarre stats that people come out with. Who cares? You know, who cares?
Yeah, an average of 98 points in the last couple of seasons suggests that that's probably true, and it doesn't really matter how many assists your midfielders do get. But I suppose the key point there, Gorsty, is that his contract does expire now. Liverpool do need to sort of get a move on, and I suppose the summer and the next few weeks in particular might be quite an important time for getting that done.
Yeah, I was told a while back that all kind of contract negotiations and transfer plans were on pause during the suspension of football. But it's been back up and running a while now, hasn't it? What are we on? About 5 weeks or so. So hopefully there's been some progress on that. I think I wrote a piece a while ago saying that should be the first order of business once Melwood doors reopen to get Wijnaldum tied down, because he's so important, as Joe says, so valuable to this Liverpool team, such a niche midfielder, a Swiss Army for a midfielder, where he can do everything, can't he? He's a defensive role, he can play the number 10 if needed, box to box. I guarantee if you play them as a number 10, he'd start chipping in with goals and assists. No problem, it's just not in the team to do that. But yeah, he's so valuable to this Liverpool team, and I do think ESPN kind of knew what they were doing at a time when there's a lot of talk of certain Bayern Munich midfielder who we've spoken about at length. But yeah, I mean, Wijnaldum's great. I mean, I wouldn't be worried about his contribution at all, because if you don't notice it, then I don't know what, as Jurgen Klopp would say, I don't know what to tell these people.
Yeah, certainly. We spoke about Dejan Lovren departing before. Another one who's expected to leave, Joe, is Adam Lallana, reportedly having a medical at Brighton today ahead of a move there. Just your reflections really on his Liverpool career, because I suppose a little bit like Lovren, he's been a crucial part under Jurgen Klopp and he shouldn't be forgotten.
Definitely not. God, that, the most emotional I've been since Liverpool won the title, I think James Carroll, tweeted a video of him, an interview with him, and he was all cut up, and I was like, God, like something in my eye. It was, I like Lallana, great pro, good player for Liverpool. It's a shame he's had the injuries he's had, because I think he would have been more involved in the last few seasons. But I'm really pleased that he's been part of this team that's won trophies, and someone that's had to battle back from a little bit of a difficult time early on in his Liverpool career. Obviously joined in that summer when Rodgers' recruitment drive didn't quite work out, and I remember early on not quite knowing where he'd fit in at Liverpool. And then when Klopp came in, he seemed to give him a piece of life and find a role for him, and obviously he was that leader of the press. We used to call him, didn't we, early on in Klopp's reign? And I remember he was excellent, and he just seemed to be the first guy that really got Jurgen Klopp's tactics and really knew what they were about, and it got the best out of him. And I always remember a goal at Leicester, at Anfield against Leicester, when the main stand opened, a hell of a strike in a 4-1 win, and a crucial goal this season at Old Trafford to make sure Liverpool didn't lose their unbeaten record there. So he's played his part. Again, he'd be another personality that would be difficult to replace. And he'd be another player that some of the young players have looked up to. I know that they spoke very highly of him. So, yeah, we wish him well. Brighton's a good move for him. I think they seem to be the right club. Seeing, obviously, from down on the south coast, they look like they play decent football. I think he would. You would think he would fit in there. So, look forward to seeing him. I'm sure when he gets back to Anfield and with Brighton next season, and there's some fans there, that they'll give him one hell of an ovation, because he'll deserve it. And he'll always have the medals, won't he?
Yeah, absolutely. A very good footballer and a very nice guy off the pitch as well, which I think you could say that about quite a few of these Liverpool players at the moment. But Gorst, there's some suggestion that he'll be offered some sort of coaching opportunity down the line at Brighton, and Joe says there it's a good move for him. Would you agree with that?
Do you know what? I actually think he probably could have went a little bit further up the league. Brighton have regularly battled to keep their head above water, haven't they? And I was surprised that Lallana's kind of dropped down to that level. There was talk of Leicester and reuniting with Rodgers, and I thought that kind of made sense. But I do know he's a South Coast lad, isn't he? And perhaps he wanted to get back down there, and Brighton obviously ideal for that with Bournemouth being relegated. I'm not too sure what the lay land is with Southampton these days, because he was the captain, wasn't he, and he left. So kind of makes sense from that point of view. But I do kind of think he might have stayed a little bit further up the league. But good luck to him. As Joe's been an excellent servant over the past years, and he's a player who I always enjoyed watching. Very, very easy on the eye, with great balance and 2 great feet. So yeah, good luck to him.
Yeah, I'm sure every Liverpool fan will wish him the best. And as Joe says, I'm sure next season, hopefully, if fans are back inside Anfield, he'll get a pretty big ovation. Someone we didn't see over the weekend, though, was Zed and Shaqiri. What does that mean for him, Joe? Could he be possibly departing Liverpool this summer?
I think so. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I just think that when he first arrived, he was a great alternative, wasn't he? And he was the sort of player that he was just perfect coming off the bench, perfect when we had to rotate and get different players into the front three. And Liverpool even at one stage changed the formation a little bit to accommodate him, didn't they? And it seemed to work really well. And I just think injuries have taken their toll, as you would expect, and B, I just think he's got a bit stale at Liverpool. And again, he came in with something to prove, didn't he? He came in to show like, this is my last chance at a big club, or perhaps his chance at a big club. And quite at Bayern Munich, and I want to do it at Liverpool. And he came in. You could clearly see bought in. He worked hard, and I just think that, as I said earlier, when you're a player like that, and you know that you're not going to get in the team, come what may, it must be quite difficult to always have the same motivation. So that's why it can be good to move those players out, freshen up, and bring in some hungry players who will have the same objective. So yeah, I think for Shaqiri, he'd be on decent money as well. I'm sure Liverpool would like to get those wages off the wage bill, and I'm sure there'll be a fair queue of clubs looking at him. He's obviously great quality, and if he can stay fit, he'd be an asset to him, really, won't he? So I think we've seen the last of him. He came on, didn't he, the other day, very late in one of the games. What game was that? They all mould together at the moment. It's been so many of them, but I didn't think we'd see him at all. From when we came back after COVID to the end of the season, I thought they were just saving him like they were saving Lallana, and he did briefly appear, but after that, it seemed that they've gone with other options. They've gone with Minamino, they've gone with Jones, and you can tell, I think, just from looking at Klopp's team selections, who's in the long-term plans and perhaps who isn't.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with that. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And I'm sure, as you say, if he does end up leaving Liverpool, there'll be plenty of interest in him. Just before we finish then, I'm going to ask you a couple of quick questions about the sort of season as a whole. First of all, to pick your favourite moment, and then your Liverpool Player of the Year. So, Gorsty, we'll come to you first on the favourite moment. Is there one particular thing that you could pick out from this season?
Probably when Jordan Henderson lifted the Premier League title at Anfield last week. In terms on the pitch moments, probably Salah against United. That was the moment, wasn't it, that the Kop started to believe, and he burst into a rendition that we're going to win the league. But there's been so many. Andy Robertson at Villa, Sadio Mane at Villa. Just generally that Leicester game. I mean, what a season, but I'd have to say Salah against United. And
Joe, your moment of the season?
Salah against United was great. Can we just put Henderson lifting the trophy to one side? Because that should be the moment. Trent against Leicester was good. I loved Lallana at Man United. I think they were really, really licking their lips at the chance of beating Liverpool and ended that run. And Lallana popping up was quite good there. Vino against City was brilliant. What a thunderbolt that was. But you know what? I'm going to go with Mane at Villa because that was early on, wasn't it? It felt like the weekend that it swung Liverpool's way. Because I think Liverpool were behind, weren't they? And didn't City drop points that weekend, from what I can remember?
City I think they were getting beat at Southampton and ended up winning late.
Or did they? Yeah.
So they could have reduced it to 3 maybe at the time. Yeah.
And Liverpool scored twice late on, and that was like, it just didn't feel like it was going Liverpool's way. It felt like such a crucial goal. And I remember really, because some of the ones later on, Liverpool was so many points ahead that by that stage, you kind of, the Salah one just confirmed what we all knew, didn't it? But the Mane one, there was still a bit of a battle going on. So I remember it was a huge relief when that goal went in. So I'll go for that.
Yeah, I think mine one would be the Fabinho one, to be honest. I think that was the game that really started off that buffer of points between Liverpool and City. That's when they kicked on. But in terms of your player of the season, then, we saw Jordan Henderson was the FWA Player of the Year last week. That was obviously on the pitch and off the pitch, but purely on the football pitch. Gorsty, your Liverpool Player of the season.
I've probably got 3 in mind, if I'm honest. The midfielder, forward, and defender.
It doesn't work like that.
I think we've given Henderson all the platitudes, haven't we? But I'm going to go with Virgil van Dijk, because I just think he's kind of kept up as the same level he was at last season. It's just not getting noticed as much because people are kind of used to it now. They'll have had the best defence in the Premier League once again. He's the best defender, and he's played in all 38 games. There's some ridiculously good little showcase moments of defending, which is difficult to have really when you're a defender, because you're at the mercy of the systems and your teammates more than you are as an attacker who can just carve out a little moment of brilliance. But there's a little flick against Southampton earlier in the season which was unbelievable. And then there's little moments where Aaron Connolly tried to have a run at him and he nods it past him. And he's just an unbelievable player. He's the best defender I've ever seen at Liverpool. And if I see a better one, then I can't wait to watch him in action.
Yeah, absolutely. Difficult to argue with, as you say, 38 games. Joe, who are you going to go for?
Before I answer, I'm just going to say, I couldn't quite believe the reaction to Henderson winning the award last week, in the sense that some rival fans were absolutely fuming. Like, it doesn't really matter, does it? It's all subjective, and I think Jordan Henderson fully deserved it for on and off the pitch efforts. And Kevin doesn't mean Kevin De Bruyne's an absolutely wonderful footballer. We all think he's great. So people need to relax a little bit. There's no agendas. It's just a matter of opinions, isn't it? But you know what? Coming to your question, it is hard to choose, isn't it? I don't think we should forget how good Henderson's been on the pitch. I think for like a good 2/3 of the season, he was absolutely superb for Liverpool and really led the way. Got that crucial goal against Tottenham, didn't he? And it felt like he was driving Liverpool on. So some really inspirational performances from him. Van Dijk, as Gorst says, brilliant. Robertson, great. But for me, it's for one of two. And a big shout for Trent. I think Trent, so close. Brilliant. Took his game to even higher levels, which I didn't think was possible this season. Started adding a few goals. Leicester was great. And just a otherworldly sort of back, isn't he, the way he plays. And, the odd complaints over his the defensive side of his game seem to have disappeared. But Sadio Mane, for me, is just... he just does a bit of everything, doesn't he? He scores goals like a proper goal scorer. He can dribble, he can pass, he's involved in everything. He's got a bit of a nasty side to him. He's just got everything. He does it with that big smile on his face. I love them. He's a great, great footballer and just keeps on getting better. One of the best players I've seen play for Liverpool. And I think he even tad underrated by the wider league as well. So, yeah, I'll go for Sadio Mane. I think he's had an exceptional season.
Yeah, Sadio Mane, my choice as well. But I suppose it can only be a good thing that Liverpool have got so many options for that accolade. No team selector for us to pick this week, so that just about brings us to the end of the show. We will be back, of course, throughout the summer with the podcast on a Monday and a Friday, plus all of your Blood Red content. But the 2019-20 season is over, and what a season it has been. That's all from the latest Blood Red podcast, from myself, from Paul, and from Joe. Until next time, it's goodbye for now.